He thought she was just another lost traveler with a broken bike. But the woman he helped in his dusty garage was actually a billionaire, heiress from her own empire, searching for something money could never buy. What started with grease-stained hands and broken dreams turned into a love neither of them saw coming. Jesse Cole's hands were stained black with engine grease, but no amount of scrubbing could erase the weight of his life. At 35, he carried the kind of exhaustion that settled into your bones, the kind that came from burying a wife and raising a son alone while fighting to keep a failing business alive. Cole's Auto Repair, a squat, weather-beaten garage on the outskirts of Silverton, Colorado, was his father's legacy and his lifeline. Its red paint was chipped, its sign barely legible, and the bank was circling like a vulture. Foreclosure loomed, a $5,000 debt hanging over him like a noose dot inside. The air smelled of oil and despair. Tools were scattered across the concrete floor, and a single fluorescent bulb flickered, threatening to give out. Jesse tightened a bolt on a rusted carburetor, his movements mechanical, his mind elsewhere. He hadn't slept properly in weeks. Not since the bank's latest call. 1 more month, they'd said. 1 more month to find money he didn't have. Dad, can we get pizza tonight? Benji's voice cut through the silence. The 7-year-old sat on a crate in the back room, coloring a picture of a his brown curls stuck to his forehead, and he wore one of Jesse's old flannel shirts. The sleeves rolled up to his wrists. Jesse forced a smile. Maybe tomorrow, buddy. Got some beans and rice for tonight. He hated lying, but the truth that their fridge was nearly empty was too heavy for Benji's small shoulders. Sarah, his late wife, would have known how to make it a game, how to turn scarcity into an adventure. But Sarah was gone, taken by a drunk driver 3 years ago, leaving Jesse to navigate fatherhood and failure alone. The bell above the door jingled, startling him. He looked up, expecting a local with a flat tire or a busted radiator. Instead, a woman stood in the doorway, her silhouette sharp against the fading sunlight. She wore a scuffed leather jacket, faded jeans, and boots caked with road dust. Her dark hair was pulled into a loose braid, and behind her, a vintage Triumph Bonneville motorcycle gleamed under the streetlight, its chrome catching the last rays of dusk. Evening, she said, her voice warm but edged with caution. You open. My bike's acting up won't idle right. Jesse wiped his hands on a rag, standing to meet her gaze. Her eyes were green, sharp, like they could see through him. Yeah, I'm open. Let's take a look. He gestured toward the bike. Name's Jesse. Harper, she replied, her smile quick and fleeting. Just passing through. He nodded, crouching beside the Triumph. It was a beauty, a 70s model, but it was running lean, likely a clogged jet or a bad fuel line. Parts for these aren't cheap, he said, glancing up. Could take a few days to order. Harper leaned against the workbench, unfazed. I've got time. Jesse didn't press her. Silverton saw its share of drifters, each with their own reasons for passing through, and he'd learned not to ask. Grief had made him private, guarded. He focused on the bike, letting the familiar rhythm of work drown out the questions in his mind. Harper watched, her presence quiet but steady, her eyes scanning the garage like she was memorizing it. Benji wandered out, clutching a juice box, his eyes wide with curiosity. Is that your motorcycle? Yup, Harper said, crouching to his level. Ever ridden one? Benji shook his head, his curls bouncing. Dad says they're dangerous. Jesse shot her a look, But Harper's grin was disarming. They can be, but they're also freedom. The word hung in the air, stirring something in Jessie, a memory of Sarah. Laughing as they drove through the mountains in their old pickup, the wind in her hair, he pushed it down. "Benji, go finish your picture." As the boys scampered off, Harper straightened, her gaze lingering on the garage. "This place yours." "For now," Jessie said, his tone clipped. He didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. Instead, she handed him a wrench when he reached for it. Her movements practiced, like she'd done this before. "You know your way around tools," he noted, surprised. "Picked up a few things on the road," she said, shrugging by the time. Jessie locked up. He'd diagnosed the bike's issues. A clogged carburetor and a worn fuel line. "About $200 for parts and labor," he told her. "Parts will take 3 days." Harper nodded. "Point me to a place to stay." "In," he said. "Mrs. Clara runs it. She'll talk your ear off, but it's clean." Harper grabbed her backpack and headed out, her boots crunching on the gravel. Jessie watched her go, a strange pull in his chest. He ignored it. Women like her didn't stay in places like Silverton. Over the next few days, Harper became a fixture. In the garage, she'd show up each morning with 2 coffees from Clara's diner, claiming she was bored while waiting for her bike. Jessie didn't budge. She didn't seem like someone who sat still, but he didn't mind the company. She was easy to talk to, quick with a laugh, and surprisingly handy. She'd pass him tools, hold parts steady, even tighten a bolt or two, with a precision that made him raise an eyebrow. "You sure you're just a drifter?" he asked one afternoon, half joking, as she cleaned a spark plug without being asked. Harper smirked. "Maybe I'm a secret mechanic." Benji adored her. He'd trail her around the garage, showing her his drawings or asking about her motorcycle. Harper never seemed annoyed, spinning tales of riding through deserts and along oceans, her voice painting pictures that made Benji's eyes light up. Jessie watched from the sidelines, torn between gratitude and unease. Benji hadn't warmed to anyone like this since Sarah, and it scared him. Kids got attached, and attachments broke. One evening, Harper showed up with a bag of groceries and a stubborn look in her eye. "You can't live on beans," she said, marching into the garage's break room, a cramped space with a hot plate and a folding table. Before Jessie could protest, she was chopping onions, the smell of garlic and tomatoes filling the air. Benji clapped, delighted, as she boiled pasta and tossed it with sauce. They sat around the table, the room warm with laughter. Harper told a story about getting stuck in a rainstorm with a flat tire, her hands flailing as she mimicked her panic. Jessie found himself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in years. Benji giggled so hard he spilled his juice, and Harper mopped it up without missing a beat. "You're not half bad at this," Jessie said, twirling spaghetti on his fork. "At cooking or storytelling?" Harper teased, her eyes sparkling. "Both," he admitted, and their gazes locked, the air charged with something unspoken. He looked away, his heart racing. He wasn't ready, not for her, not for this. The town noticed Harper too. At Clara's diner, locals whispered about the biker girl who seemed too polished for her worn-out jacket. Clara swore she'd seen Harper's face in a magazine, but Jessie dismissed it as gossip. Clara saw mysteries in every stranger. By the 3rd day, the bike parts arrived and Jessie got to work. Harper lingered, asking about the garage's history. He told her about his dad, who'd built it with his bare hands, and Sarah, who'd balanced the books and made the place a home. His voice grew heavy, and Harper listened, her usual quips replaced by quiet empathy. "You're doing right by Benji," she said softly. "That's not easy." Jesse shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "He's all I've got." That night, Harper joined them at Silverton's weekly bonfire, where locals gathered around a crackling fire pit, share beer and stories. She fit in effortlessly, trading jokes with the hardware store owner and twirling Benji to a scratchy radio tune. Jesse watched, a beer in hand, feeling the walls around his heart crack. She wasn't just passing through, she was leaving a mark. But then he saw it. A black SUV parked at the edge of the lot, its driver watching Harper through tinted windows. Jesse's gut twisted. He'd seen cars like that before, tailing Sarah's accident scene, reporters sniffing for a story. Whoever was watching Harper wasn't local. The next morning, Jesse arrived at the garage to find Harper already there, tinkering with her bike. Her movements were tense, her eyes darting to the window every few seconds. "You in trouble?" Jesse asked, his voice sharper than he meant. She hesitated, her hands stilling on the wrench. "No, just eager to get moving." He didn't believe her, but before he could push, a roar filled the air. 3 black SUVs screeched into the lot, followed by a news van with a satellite dish. Men in suits spilled out, one with a camera, another, shouting, "Ms. Lane, Harper Lane." Jesse froze, his wrench clattering to the floor. What the hell is this? Harper's face drained of color. Jesse, the door burst open, and a man in a tailored suit strode in, his polished shoes absurd against the greasy concrete. "Harper, this is ridiculous. Your father's been worried sick. You're coming home." Jesse's mind reeled. "Your father?" Harper turned to him, her eyes pleading. "I was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" he demanded, but the pieces were snapping together. Lane, the SUVs, the news van. Lane Motors, the automotive empire whose parts filled his shelves. "I'm Harper Lane," she said, her voice barely audible. "My father owns Lane Motors." I didn't mean to lie. The words hit like a punch. She wasn't a drifter. She was a billionaire heiress, playing make-believe in his world. The coffee, the spaghetti, the laughter, it was all a game. Jesse's chest tightened, betrayal mixing with humiliation. "You used me," he said, his voice low and cold. "You used my son." "No," Harper said, stepping toward him. "It wasn't like that. I needed to know what was real." "Real?" Jesse laughed, the sound bitter. "This is real. This garage, my kid, the bills, I can't path, that's real. You're just a tourist in my life." The man in the suit cleared his throat. "Ms. Lane, the jets, waiting at Durango." Harper ignored him, her eyes locked on Jesse. "I'm not leaving. Not yet." But Jesse turned away, his hands shaking. "Fix your bike and go." The reporters outside shouted questions, their cameras flashing through the windows. Harper's shoulders slumped, and she walked out, the suits trailing her like shadows. Jesse stood frozen, the garage silent except for the hum of the dying fluorescent bulb. By noon, Silverton was a circus. Reporters swarmed the garage, snapping photos of the sign, the tools, even Benji's drawings taped to the wall. Jesse chased them off, his wrench raised like a weapon, but the damage was done. The town buzzed with gossip, the billionaire heiress, who'd fooled them all. Clara claimed she'd known all along, but Jesse didn't care. He felt like a fool. Benji, confused, kept asking where Harper was. "Is she coming back, Dad?" he asked, his voice small. "I don't know," Jesse said. hating how it hurt to say it. That evening, Harper returned. She stood in the doorway, her leather jacket gone, replaced by a tailored blazer that screamed wealth. Her hair was loose, gleaming under the garage's dim light. She looked like a stranger, untouchable, out of place. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice steady but raw. "I should have told you." Jesse didn't look up from the engine he was working on, though his hands weren't moving. "Doesn't change anything." "It does," Harper insisted, stepping closer. "I left because I was drowning. My father, the company, the life it was killing me. I wanted something real, Jesse. I found it here, with you, with Benji." Her words cut, stirring the hope he'd tried to bury, but the hurt was too raw. "You don't belong here," he said. "You've got a jet, a company, a life I can't even imagine." Harper's eyes flashed with defiance. "You think I care about the money? I'd burn it all for this for you." Before he could respond, she pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the workbench. "Open it." Jesse's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a deed to the garage, stamped paid in full. His breath caught. The $5,000 debt, the threat of foreclosure rate, was gone. "What is this?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I bought the loan," Harper said. "The garage is yours, no strings. I'm not trying to buy you, Jesse. I'm trying to show you I'm here." He stared at the papers, his mind a storm. The garage was his dream, his father's dream, the only thing keeping him and Benji afloat. But it came from her, the woman who'd lied, who'd walked into his life under false pretenses. His pride screamed to tear it up, to send her away. But then he thought of Benji, of the life he could give him. A life without fear. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Because I love you," Harper said, her voice unwavering. "And I love Benji. I want to stay, Jesse. Not as Harper Lane, the heiress. Just as Harper." The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Jesse looked at her, really looked, and saw the woman who'd laughed with his son, who'd cooked in his break room, who'd made him feel alive again. She wasn't the lie. She was the truth. But he wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. "I need time," he said, his voice rough. Harper nodded, her eyes glistening. "I'll wait." 2 months later, the garage was transformed. The sign was repainted, the windows repaired, and new tools lined the walls, bought with the first profits from a steady stream of customers. Word had spread about Jesse's work, and Harper's connections, quietly leveraged, brought in clients from beyond Silverton. But she never took credit, never mentioned her name. Harper stayed. She traded her blazer for a flannel shirt, her jet for a toolbox. She worked alongside Jesse, learning the trade, her hands growing calloused and stained. She didn't talk about Lane Motors, and Jesse didn't ask. Her father had cut her off, furious at her choice, but she didn't flinch. She'd chosen her own path. Benji thrived. He'd race through the garage, chasing a stray cat Harper had named Wrench, his laughter filling the space. At night, he'd sit between Jesse and Harper on the couch, reading stories or watching old movies. The garage wasn't just a business anymore, it was a home. One evening, as snow dusted the mountains, Jesse found Harper outside, staring at the stars. Her breath clouded in the cold, and she looked small, human, not the heiress the world had tried to make her. "You didn't have to stay," Jesse said, standing beside her. "You could have gone back." Harper turned to him, her eyes steady. "I didn't want to go back. This is where I belong." He took her hand, his fingers rough against hers. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared to trust you. scared to lose you. And now, she asked, her voice soft. Now I'm not, he said, pulling her close. I love you, Harper. You and Benji, you're my family. She smiled, tears catching in her lashes, and kissed him under the starlit sky. The mountains stood silent, no longer judges, but witnesses to something new. The next morning, Jessie hung a new sign above the garage: Coal and Lane Auto Repair. Harper laughed when she saw it, her eyes bright with pride. The town still whispered, but the gossip had softened, replaced by respect. Jessie and Harper were building something real, something lasting. As Benji ran to them, holding a drawing of a motorcycle with 3 stick figures him, Jessie and Harper. Jessie felt the weight of his past lift. The road ahead wasn't easy, but it was theirs, and that was enough.